If you're listening to this episode, you are a trooper, because if you follow this podcast, you know it's been several months since I've released anything. What you may not know is I took a professional sabbatical from July through the end of October. I was completely removed from Live Oak email, Live Oak calendar. I was pretty well focused on only the things within my four fences. I am getting back into my rhythm now. I've got some new episodes that are planned to come out here soon. Just trying to get schedules coordinated now that I'm back in work mode. But I did record 2 episodes during the sabbatical period. One that you'll listen to here. This is with Phillip Cole. If you've listened to this show in the past, you know Phillip's a pastor. He's a friend of mine. We recorded this back in September, so some of the subject matter you'll see is what you would consider aged in today's news climate, though obviously the subjects are still being discussed ongoing. I do very much appreciate the relationship I have with Phil. You'll hear him many, many times in the future. He's just become a good friend and a good sounding board for me, both personally and professionally. But we'll record this episode. We'll release this episode, and then we'll release a follow-up episode with a good friend of mine from just way, way back here shortly. With all that said, I hope you'll enjoy this conversation with Phillip Cole. And then that sets it to recording. Does that look right to you?
Looks right to me. Is it?
What I wonder about is that it seems like it's recording. Yeah, I think I'm getting it. This one picks up white hot. This one you got to be talking to the mic.
Yeah. Hello. Yes. Yes. It's a little
Microphones.
Different. It's a little different Tascam than the one I'm used to. So,
what's the better way to do this? The whole goal of this setup was to make it fit in this case.
Yeah, you travel with it.
Where I can go anywhere I'm going to go.
Yeah.
You think this fan's going to mess with it?
Shouldn't. It should have a little limiter on there that.
That's what this little thing is supposed to.
Cut the air.
Prevent the popping noises.
Yeah. All the fun mouth noises.
So this will just be audio only. What I've been thinking about doing, because I've got a lot of people that are going to be coming out here in the next couple months that I would want to record with. It's pretty comfortable to be able to sit in here and do it and just record audio.
Yeah.
But the way that I consume podcasts is in the first 5 minutes, I'll go and I'll turn it on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll actually put the video on so I can see the room that the people are in, what they're wearing, what they look like. So I thought a good way to do that would be to just start with like this, that I can cut into it. Mm-hmm. And then somebody can see, oh, that's what we look like day of. And then they just have to listen to the audio.
Yeah.
That sound right to you?
Yeah. Or just, take a picture of us.
Yeah. Take a picture would be the way to do it too. Just chop it in.
Just put a picture up there.
That's probably the right way to do it.
And then put the audio underneath it.
We've had a tough time getting connected in the last month, even though we have an every other week on the calendar that stands there.
I know. It's no fun.
Mutually busy.
Yeah.
Is that what you chalk it up to?
Yeah.
Me too. It's this period of my life has been like a complete 180 just in terms of where my mental energy is going, because such a big use of my mental energy just went to zero July 1st, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a total reshuffling of that deck.
Yeah.
And one of the unfortunate casualties of that is I have not podcasted hardly at all.
Yeah.
Like I did one with Jess Haney from Texas Coffee Works.
Oh, how was that?
It was really good.
Okay.
It's uploading as we speak.
Cool.
I did one with our mutual friend Josh Bingaman, and then I did another one with Ethan Schindler.
So your second one with Josh, or was that the first one?
That was my first with Josh.
Okay.
Yeah, we've talked about doing a follow-up. But
yeah, it was really good.
We will at some point.
Yeah.
He's a man.
I appreciated that one a lot, man. It's rare to find, he's a great dude, influencer in his own right, just by being genuine, and so when you get around, most of us, our natural tendency isn't to be genuine. People are chameleons for the most part, so you kind of become what you're around. And he's just not. He's just genuine and honest, and so kind of when you get around him, and you saw it even with you, in that podcast, you just become let your guard down because he kind of leads in that, and then just have real conversations about real stuff that most people don't. So for me, it was great, man. I thought it was some podcasts are informational and some are inspirational, but that one was, to me, was healing, in a lot of ways, just listening and hearing other people's struggles and hearing, where they were and how they got out of that and where they still are and their struggles in that and what they do for those things. To me, it's like, okay, one, I'm not alone, in my own issues and my own struggles. It's okay to have those things, but here's how they came out of those things. And so for me, it's like, oh, let's do that.
Yeah. That was a conversation I won't forget, because that morning started with me texting him saying, hey, no, he texted me and he said, hey, this is a little weird, but today may not be the best day to podcast because I've been in like a funk depression for the last couple of weeks. And he's like, I just know I'm not my best self. And I just instinctively thought, like, man, he was really honest about that. Yeah. Man, I'd want to lean into that. Yeah. And if anything, like, that's the day I'd want you, because it's the real version of yourself. Yeah. You want some of this coffee?
Yeah, sure.
And you're right. It's a common feature of the people that I spend a lot of time with, is they are all just kind of ruthlessly honest in that way.
Yeah.
They are who they are from the jump.
Yep.
There you go. And there's not a whole lot of like pleasantry to get into their real personality. They just sort of wear it on their sleeve.
Yeah.
The other feature of a guy like Josh and a guy like Ethan that I admire and I couldn't really fully put my finger on it, was they're both very intentional with their time. Mm-hmm. So when you get on their calendar, they're serious about like, hey, let's put it on the calendar.
Oh yeah.
Here's my times that I'm free. Let's have an agenda, at least like a loose agenda. And there's, even with friendships, like, you can leave the agenda piece open, but scheduling time for stuff.
And I'm like the exact opposite.
Dude, I am too. That's how we can miss.
That's why we can miss
a calendar day and then see it like 6 hours later. Oh, we were supposed to have coffee today.
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime I meet up with Ethan, like, hey, can we talk? He's like, yeah. He's like, here's my schedule. Where do you fit in?
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
He's good people.
Maybe I should get more organized.
I've introduced him to a couple people that I have a profound amount of respect for professionally, and just sort of let him interact with people that I know that don't really have a context for him other than just me introducing him. Yeah. And it's been fun to get their feedback. They're all fans too.
Yeah, he's a cool dude.
Yeah. Man,
which is kind of fun. It's not surprising, but it's interesting that we kind of started really organically. We just start running in the same circles, which is pretty cool.
What's that?
You and I, like, you just kind of naturally gravitated to the same people that
I notice it too.
That I gravitated.
Why is that?
I don't know.
There's a even in a place like Bastrop County where there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of dudes our age, 4 or 5 dudes find each other that all kind of mutually know each other anyways. Yeah. But not through conventional means. Like, he knew you through the gym. Yeah. I knew you through the church. Yeah. I don't know how Joshua knew you. I guess through the gym too.
Yeah, gym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's those friendships came at a really important time. I would say too, Mike Davis and Austin Pilot, like the period at which I met those two guys was pivotal for me being here, because it was 3 years in. Like, I haven't made friendships beyond this pastor guy that I know, but I see him every Sunday, so that's a little weird.
Can't get together.
Yeah, that we missed meetings and don't even see him on the calendar. But those two guys, like, they came at a time when I needed to just be able to be honest about what was frustrating me coming here and having a tough time finding friendships. And Austin in particular, he kind of corrected me on some things where that's a feature of an ecosystem that I'm not interested in having, is this echo chamber of like dudes that are afraid to disagree with me about something. Or be like, no, I think you're looking at that wrong. Yeah. Like, man, I need that in my life. Yeah. So Austin did that for me at a pretty important point.
Yeah. Yeah. He is not bashful.
No.
In terms of speaking his truth or his mind. And again, never in a way that's off-putting, or it's always, truth in love. Mm-hmm. Like, I've known him to be around guys that were just kind of, people who aren't necessarily followers of Jesus, but are on the brink, and they're like, they'll say things like, I feel, there's a lot of good qualities and a lot of, I enjoy church and these things. And then Austin just be like, so what's your problem, man? Like, why don't you just go all in, dude? And they're like,
yeah.
It's like, it really makes you dance around the actual problem or issue or question at hand, and he just kind of gets right in there. It's like, so tell me why what's keeping you from doing this? And then they have to face that question for themselves, which is great. So I appreciate that about him.
The kind of person that'll tell you the truth, looking you in the eyes, even if they know like this is going to make him a little uncomfortable, but I'm going to tell him anyways. Yeah, man.
Some people love being uncomfortable, or they're comfortable being uncomfortable. I think he's one of those guys.
Yeah, I think you need 4 of those guys.
Yeah, at least
3 or 4 at most.
At least 3. Yeah.
Like no one guy is going to be his best self by himself. You got to have a little group around you.
Yeah, Keenan's one of those guys.
Man, I've just gotten to know Keenan a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you know what our background of our friendship?
Yeah.
Man, he very, very early days of Live Oak. I didn't realize how early it was. He and I had lunch a week or 2 ago, and he reminded me that he interviewed for a job that was like within the first 2 years of starting that business. So he was early.
Yeah.
And he knew my mom from, I guess my mom had taught his wife.
Yeah.
But anyways, getting to know him.
Connections are weird.
It is weird.
Yeah, you went to school with Bonnie.
Uh-huh.
You know,
yeah.
And then,
now Claire.
Yeah. And Jamie was taught by your mom. It's crazy.
It's weirder.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting there in church seeing this guy playing the bass, and I'm like, man, that looks like the dude that taught me Spanish in high school.
Oh, really?
And I finally worked up the courage to go up to him between services one day and go, hey, what's your last name? Yeah. And he said, Hewitt. I was like, dude, you used to teach me Spanish back in the day. It was wild.
That's funny, man.
Big city, but a small town.
Yeah, he's a brilliant guy.
Yeah, man, I had occasion to have coffee put on our calendar with Austin the last 2 weeks, and we've got 4 more.
Yeah,
because he can't drive for 6 weeks.
That's right.
Because he got himself into a little miracle.
Yeah.
Have you heard his story behind that?
I haven't heard his
behind what
directly,
happened.
No.
Man, I'll have to have him come and recant it where we can get it recorded. But suffice to say, like, the security system in his truck showed him going 72 miles an hour in a straight line while he slept, and then at the last minute turned to the left to miss hitting the crash truck that he hit head on. He hit it at a glancing blow, which spun him around and not only saved his life, but the 2 guys that were sitting in that truck's life.
Yeah.
He woke up in the middle of the highway going, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
And found himself like, oh, I must have fallen asleep. And then when they pulled the security stuff, like it's a work truck, so they've got all those security devices in it. They see, oh, no, your truck swerved at the last minute and just barely avoided hitting the back of that truck.
Yeah. The Lord works in mysterious ways, bro.
So I have coffee with him Wednesday 2 weeks ago, only for the world to change later that day with the Charlie Kirk thing.
Week. Was that last week?
It was 10 days ago, right?
Was it?
10 or 11 days ago?
Yeah. I think it was last Wednesday.
Wednesday before last, maybe? I don't know. That time has been weird.
Wednesday before last, yeah. It's been a quick 2 weeks, man.
Did you see it?
The video? Mm-hmm.
Me too. I've hunted animals my whole life.
Yeah.
And you know when you make a good shot.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that registered to me. Like, it's not a video I would ever watch a second time.
Oh, no. I watched it once. It's like, yeah, I'm good. But I think entering into that reality, at least for me, like I wouldn't advise it for a lot of people.
No.
But for me, I think entering into that moment at whatever level I can, so that I can at least have an understanding of what people feel and are going through, because for me as a pastor, like I know, I know other people have seen it, and if I can't enter into that grief with them, or if I, if I can't understand what they felt or what they saw, those kind of things, and also just there's a darkness that's present in that I think is worth facing sometimes. Like I don't want to watch that. Keep myself, from being fearful or whatever. Yeah. But I think sometimes just staring at the darkness and, not allowing it any kind of, place in your life is healthy at sometimes too. But yeah.
Yeah, there would be a line there to avoid. Like there is a point at which exposing yourself to evil is not, the juice wouldn't be worth the squeeze.
No.
I see what you're talking about, though, in that if you have a bunch of people that are going to be processing a pretty significant event all at once, it's hard to be fully of service to them if you haven't been exposed to that same
absolutely
thing.
You know, and God, teenagers, young kids on, you know, the Twitters and the TikToks or whatever, you know.
Yeah, because it was viral before they even knew he was
like,
not going to make it.
People who ought not see things like that are seeing things like that. And especially for those, I mean, for anybody, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's difficult when you see a life taken. There's trauma attached to that, especially at a young age. You don't know how to deal with that. You don't know how to compartmentalize that or to grieve that or to, you know, so much less adults. Like, so for me, it was kind of, that was really the main thing. Like, what have people seen and how does that affect them? And I can't understand that or know that until it does me. So, yeah.
Yeah. It was, when I was a young kid, you know, every kid my age probably went through a certain part of this phase, but like you get served videos of people dying. I don't know what they used to be called. There was a website devoted to stuff like that where you see a guy fall off a cliff and you see this guy get attacked by a tiger.
There's a thing called Faces of Death back in the
Faces
day.
of Death.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
So like I've seen a lot of people die on film.
Yeah.
That one was different. And I don't know if it's like, I didn't follow a whole lot of that dude's content. I saw some of it, you know, just sort of reaches you through the ecosystem of media that you're taking in. So I'd seen some of it. Some of it I thought was really, really good. Some of it I eye rolled at, although in hindsight, I don't understand fully why.
Yeah.
But watching the video of it happening before you knew he was dead, it hit me in a different spot. Man, it effed my world up for 2 days. Like, I don't know. It was darkness. You just saw darkness in that video.
Yeah.
And man, that's a hard thing to process, not knowing the guy, but seeing what's happened in the days since, like seeing his wife stand on stage and talk last night.
That was powerful.
My gosh.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine being in that sort of a circumstance and being able to stand on my own 2 feet, let alone have myself put together to talk in front of a stadium full of people.
60,000 plus people.
My gosh.
Hundreds of millions watching on.
And not lose it once.
Yeah.
Like you just witnessed your husband get murdered in front of your eyes and went through his funeral and like processing that whole thing. And then your response is, I'll pick up the torch and carry it. Oh, and by the way, I forgive that guy.
Yeah.
My gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one.
Well, and I think that's part of the beauty of it, man. It's like we get to see the world. Like, I mean, as Christians, we should, like, we know, like I preach it all the time, right? We love our enemies. That's incredibly hard. And it's a different love. It's not an affectionate love. It's not a goosey bump love, you know, like, oh, I just love them. Can't wait to see my enemies, you know, but it's a love that's willing, an agape love as Christ loved us. It's a love that's willing to say, I will lay down my life, my, you know, agenda, you know, my privileges in order for you to know Jesus, in order for you to know the grace and the mercy and the salvation that I know that I have received, because I've received those things unmerited. I've received those things when I didn't deserve them, when I was an enemy of God, when I was a trespasser, when I was rebellious. And he looked upon me with grace and mercy and love, and Jesus, you know, humbled himself. We talked about it Sunday. Being in equality with God, didn't consider, you know, that's something to be grasped. So what did he do? He laid aside his privileges, and he took on the very nature of a servant, and he laid his life down, you know, for us so that we could have a relationship with God. And so that's what we see in that moment, is a beautiful reflection of Christ Jesus. It's a beautiful reflection of the gospel. It's really easy for people to say, I follow Jesus. It's really easy for people to say, I'm a Christian. What's incredibly difficult and what we rarely see is such deep and impactful evidence of that. And that's what we saw. And God allowed it to be seen on the most massive scale, I think, ever.
Yeah.
At least in my lifetime, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
I've seen Christian conferences. I've seen, Christian events. Passion is a incredibly powerful Christian conference, and they meet in stadiums like Cowboy Stadium or whatever, and they'll pack out a stadium and they'll worship. But it's in the, what I'm trying to say, the setting is great. It's beautiful. It's blissful. You know what I mean? There's no conflict. It's just a bunch of Christians who love the Lord worshiping. It's not. There's no real difficulty. There's no presence of evil. There's nothing to get over. I've never in my life seen a stadium full of people when there's been such evil and darkness displayed in the world, and for them to come together under a banner of grace, and then for somebody who has every right as a person to be bitter and angry and to get up there and
broken,
rally a political movement, and let's go get them, but instead showed the character of Christ and laid aside their privileges as Jesus did, to say, you could tell this wasn't fake. You know what I mean? That was hard for her to do. It was hard for her to say, right? It wasn't, nobody can look at that and be like, oh, she's just, trying to do what, it's like, that's real. Like that, she struggled with that, as she should have, as we all would. But at the end of the day, that's the power of the Holy Spirit within her, to give her that strength to be able to stand up there and to proclaim what she proclaimed with a genuine conviction that, I forgive him.
Man, it was, there's a handful of things that I've seen on video that gave me goosebumps. Normally you kind of have to be there to get the goosebumps from it. But there's been like concerts you see where you've got massive crowds that are all jumping up and down at once, and you just realize, like, oh my gosh, that would have been gnarly to be in that building. But watching that, you're right, there was a different level of just grace given that was overwhelming to watch. Like, I had to pause it for a second and just go, my gosh, I just can't imagine.
Yeah, and and to me, that overshadows everything, right? I don't, it wasn't, like, to me, it's, there was political leaders on both sides of the aisle there. There's people there that I've, since that event, leading up even into today, there's been, video and confessionals of people who went to the event that weren't Christians, people who were practicing other faiths or agnostic or atheist, but they went more in the sense of maybe they were supporters of conservative politics, or they followed Charlie, and even today, like, if you follow people on a podcast, there's a sense that I know them,
Yeah.
And so that loss is hard for them too. So they go, in that manner. And since then, there's been so many stories of people coming to salvation in Christ Jesus and giving their lives to him, to follow him, not because of the political leaders, not because of the Christian artists that were on stage singing, not because there were 60,000 plus people in attendance, but simply because the love and grace of Christ was displayed in such a deep and powerful way that cannot be ignored or argued away.
Do you believe in this notion that God can be questioned? Like the Jefferson quote, I think we've talked about this before. I don't remember if we've talked about it on record, but the Jefferson quote about, be there a God, he must surely prefer honest questioning to blindfolded fear.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're talking to a person that questions by nature, which I would consider myself to be one, and you are up against somebody who doesn't really speak definitively about anything, and that one final leap of faith that it takes to say, I'm all in for this faith. I'm following this person who was the example of the way to live, and I believe that it's true. Talk to the intellectual type that always wants to leave the trap door of like, okay, but I've got to question everything too.
Well, yeah, I don't think following Christ is about confident assurance in everything. I think there's room for human nature, and I think God knows that. I don't think, right, when I bring my questions or my fear, anxieties, worries, or even doubts to God, it doesn't lessen him. He's not offended. He's not like, well, I guess I'm not God anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He is who he is. He knows who he is. He longs for me to know more of who he is. And so he meets me in that place of doubt and in that place of question and in that place of uncertainty. And it's up to me to press into him, into that. And again, there's just some things I'm not going to have answers to. And that's okay. There's a level of faith and trust that's a part of our calling to follow Christ. We're not going to have the answers to everything, unfortunately. But I don't think, doubt should ever keep us from the Lord. I think of, Thomas in the Bible. Jesus rises from the dead, and all the disciples are like, yeah, he's back. Thomas is like, hey, no way. I'm not going to believe it, unless he stands right here.
Mm-hmm.
And he shows me his hands, and I get to put my finger, which is just gross, by the way.
It's kind of gross.
I gotta put my hands
hand
up in
his
this
side.
dude. Yeah, like just kind of weird. I call him Gross Thomas, but anyways, he's like, and then Jesus appears, and he's like, come here, bro. Like, he doesn't say shame on you. He doesn't, he does say you have little faith, but not in a way that's like, you have little faith. How dare you? He's like, he's almost like he's sad for Thomas. Like, you have little faith, man.
Yeah.
Like, let me help you with your faith. Come here, and it's really that doubting and the questioning, the skepticism of Thomas that brought him closer to Jesus. And so Jesus is like, yeah, come here, let me show you. This is real. I'm real. We're good.
Yeah. I just had this conversation with my brother yesterday about how as you get older, it's like the older you get, the more you realize how little you knew at every phase of life where you felt like you had your stuff together.
Yeah.
And then you at 18, you feel like, man, I know what I'm doing here. Like,
Yeah.
I'll be fine. And then you get to 35 and you realize that guy didn't know anything about what he was doing.
Didn't know. Yeah.
Not a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here we are, I'll be 40 this year. I feel like that's an age where you're a man, for sure. You're 40.
Yeah.
But I hang out with a bunch of 80-year-old dudes who would look at their 40-year-old self and be like, man, that guy didn't, like, if he only knew, So you have to be sort of comfortable with this idea about yourself, believing in things that you don't know with 100% actual factual certainty, because you've sat there and you've stared Jesus in the face. Like, there are things that require you to act on faith.
Yeah.
And for me, kids was a big catalyzing point for me, because your instinct as a parent with kids is to protect them as much as possible. And the older they get, the more they get themselves into situations where you realize, man, I can't do a damn thing to protect this kid. Yeah. Like Lincoln running out on the football field in football pads and remembering football injuries I had, and like, I can't do anything for that kid. I think you're sort of pushed closer to a concept of faith and a powerful God when you're looking at your kids and your desire to protect them and the knowledge that you just can't.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to come to.
Yeah, and I think, again, what we always want to do in those moments is just come back to the basic gospel, right? Preach that to ourselves, speak it to ourselves. And there's a really good book. It's called Gospel Fluency. And, I'll take some more coffee. Thank you. It's a great book. It's by Jeff Vanderstelt. And actually, my small group is going through it right now. I read it years ago.
Gospel Fluency?
Gospel Fluency. And it's kind of, the idea is that, if you want to, it's like a language or anything else. Like, if you want to get good at speaking something, being fluent in something, we want to be fluent in the gospel. Like, what is the gospel? Who is Jesus? What has he done for us? What does that mean in every area of our life? And how do we speak that to ourselves in that way? And the beginning of the book's really cool because it talks about unbelief and I think we've done a disservice, really, because as Christians, for some reason, we started calling people believers and unbelievers, right? And so we think, well, I'm in the believers camp, so there's no room for unbelief, right? I have to, believe everything, right? We should, at some level, strive to come into belief in the things of God, but there's always moments of unbelief, right? And there's times where it's like, I remember some of the difficult times in my life. I thought, man, I don't know. I don't see how you're going to get to this. I don't see how you're going to fix this. I don't see how this is going to work for my good. I don't see how, and there's these moments of unbelief. There's these moments of doubt, and skepticism. But that, again, that's okay. We all wrestle with these moments of unbelief. And really what we want to do is come back to the gospel and think, okay, what does the gospel say about this? What does Jesus in his life and his sacrifice, his death, his burial, and his resurrection, what does that say to me in this? What does the gospel speak to me in this moment about how I feel? And again, we saw that with the Charlie Kirk celebration of life. Like that was a display of the gospel. It was like, okay, how is this even good? I doubt that God can bring good for this, whatever it is. And then there's this beautiful moment where nobody saw coming, where it's, stadium packed with people, and a wife gets up there and she reflects the gospel. Forgiveness, grace, mercy, sets aside her privileges as Jesus did. She literally spoke the gospel into millions of people, and countless numbers of salvations that we'll probably never know about have happened, where people have placed their faith and trust in Jesus to walk with him. And so, again, it's that idea of we're all going to wrestle with unbelief. If anybody says they don't, they're lying. But what we do trust in and what we do believe in is Jesus, right? Who he is, his work on the cross for us, his death, his burial, and his resurrection. I believe in that. I don't doubt that for a minute. I'm not skeptical about that at all. Like that's everything to me. My whole life is set upon that and hidden in that. Everything outside of that, there's worry, there's fear, there's struggle in the world, and there's moments where I think, okay, how does this work? How do I get out of this, or how do we get out of this, or what, with our kids, right? Sometimes I'm like, sometimes I get so worried because I look at the world and I think, my goodness, what are my kids going to, when I'm not here anymore, what are my kids going to be dealing with? What are my grandkids going to be dealing with? And sometimes that worries me and I start to doubt, but then it's like, okay, let's go back to Jesus. And let's fix our eyes on him, and let's center in that, trust in that, and then go from there.
Okay, so if you're talking to somebody who's Christian curious or they're Bible curious, maybe they're just taking like a historian's approach to artifacts like the Bible or other religious artifacts like the Quran, or what other ones are there? Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
Whatever religious texts there are. If you're talking to somebody about getting into the Bible and understanding it, do you tell them to start in Genesis?
Never.
Or do you don't?
Mm-mm.
Tell me how you would have somebody approach it if they're approaching it from scratch.
I generally tell people to go to the book of John. Really all the Bible centers around Jesus. I mean, the whole thing is about Jesus. So even if you start in Genesis, the very first prophecy of Jesus is found in Genesis, when it says it talks about the serpent and says the woman will crush his heel, the woman will bear one that crushes his heel. It's basically this prophecy to Eve about Mary giving birth to Jesus, who will defeat death, defeat the curse. And so even that is about Jesus from the very beginning. All of the messianic prophecies throughout the Old Testament point to Jesus. All the practices, all the festivals, everything points to Jesus. And so you always want to start with Jesus. I wouldn't start. I wouldn't try to, put something together backwards. you know. So start at the focal point. Okay, here's Jesus, because really it doesn't, you know, if you don't believe in Jesus, or if you don't trust in Jesus, or if you don't acknowledge, you know, who Jesus is and who he says that he is, then none of the rest matters. It's you can go read a self-help book if that's what you want, but all of that points to him. So I tell people to start in the book of John, which I love the book of John, because the book of John's it's like a 3,000 foot view of Jesus. It's the gospel magnified. So he makes a really, really big deal about Jesus and who he is as the Son of God, who he is as a Messiah. So it's a little easier to read than most other things. So that's where I tell people to always start. Like, you don't want to get into, you know, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, that kind of stuff, because that's more about how do we live as Christians? How does the church operate? If we are followers of Jesus, then what does that look like in our daily lives? How does that dictate the way that we live in terms of our marriage, with our kids, in our places of employment, with city officials and government and politics and all of those different areas? So that dictates all that stuff, which, again, if you're not a follower of Jesus, none of that stuff matters. It can help you to have some morals in your life, right? But at the end of the day, that's not the point of Jesus.
You're missing the plot of the book if you start there.
Yeah. So really it's about, okay, who's this Jesus feller? And, you know, and do I even believe that he existed? Right? That's where you got to start. Is he real? Was he real? And then if he did exist, is the gospel accounts, are they accurate? And can I trust them? Right? Are these historical documents worth putting my weight into? Which, again, if you start reading and studying, they're the most historically accurate ancient text in existence. And so Jesus, you know, at some point, unless you're just, you know, dogmatic and don't want to give into something, at some point you got to think, if logically Jesus existed, he's real. And then it becomes, okay, so he was real. Now who was he? You know, was he a crazy carpenter who, you know, just wanted a following? Was he the rabbi that he says that he is? Was he just a good rabbi? Was he a moral teacher? Was he all the, you know, or was he the Messiah? Was he the one that was been prophesied throughout the Old Testament? Is he the Son of God? Is he the Savior of the world? And you gotta kind of study those things. And again, a part of it's still going to be trust and belief. You can try to find all the information and historical facts, and many people have. People like there's a book called More Than a Carpenter, another book called A Case for Christ.
That's Strobel, right?
Strobel and Josh McDowell. Yeah, both those guys were atheist, agnostic at best, and at one point in their life, both of them, through different sets of circumstances, kind of set out to prove Christianity is a myth, that it's not real. And so...
in Strobel's case, he was an investigating attorney, too.
He was an investigative attorney. The other one was he dabbled in, I think, some kind of reporting. Both brilliant people. Smart enough to get to the bottom of something, to prove something wrong. You know what I mean?
Right.
And a lot of those, if you're going to go to that much trouble, you have a gift. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you're bent towards arguments and competitive, you know, babbling, I call it. So,
and not giving up until you've gotten to the bottom of something where you're convinced of it.
Yeah. Like, if it matters that much, you're trying to prove a point.
Right.
And so in their investigations, interviewing, I mean, countless number of people, you know, Bible scholars to historians to everything from skeptics to believers. At the end of both of them said the same thing in different ways at the end of their writings. And it was, you know, although you can't know everything, it would take more faith for me to not believe in Jesus being who he says that he is and doing what he has done than it would for me to believe. And so I believe. And so that's where people got to get. And I've sat with many guys and kind of walked them through, some of them in our church. Will was one of those guys. just sitting with some of these people and them having really kind thoughts about Jesus, like, man, look, I read the Gospels and he's humble and he's kind and he helps people, he's really good. He's a good guy. And I just tell him, he's not, if that's all you think of him. He's a madman. Do we think of David Koresh as a good moral leader? No, right? We don't. If somebody claims to be God and tries to convince other people to follow him and to lay down their lives for him, and they're not God, they're nuts.
Yeah.
These aren't people that we put on a pedestal and think, yeah, let's be like them.
He wasn't just a kind, sweet rabbi that took care of the downtrodden, if he was also at the same time saying, yeah, but I'm God.
Yeah.
If he wasn't God, he was either Lord or he was a lunatic.
Either one. Yeah. C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
Right. It's exactly what he said. He's either he's God or he's a liar, a lunatic, and whatever. But people have to come to that on their own, and there's a sense of trust and faith in that. It's like, I trust this. I put my faith in this. And again, it's an act of, it really is. It's not just, it's not just an act of, okay, I believe. It's an act of surrender. It's, I do believe. And because I believe, that belief leads to a behavior, right? And so I am surrendering all that I am. Again, what we just saw, I'm laying aside my privileges. I'm laying aside, my preferences. I'm laying aside my wills and my wants. And I'm giving you everything. Like, I'm following you. And so that's where transformation begins. So you can't, again, I can give you that's why I don't get into a whole lot of theological debates with people. And I don't argue with skeptics. I'm just like, get on the Google machine, man. You can find all the information you want to find. If you want to, at this point, it's just for the sake of argument and winning an argument. If you really want to know, you'll go look, and you'll really look with an open mind. And at the end of the day, it's not my job to convince you of anything. If you want to be convinced of anything, just go look at the world, man. The world will convince people that whatever their way is not a good way.
Yeah.
Or not the way.
And that way, it's not unlike an addict who has to first refer to themselves as an addict, is like their first step towards freedom from it.
Yeah.
It's like at some point, you got to own that piece of it.
Yeah.
Whatever your faith pursuit has to start with you taking ownership in it and asking questions and talking to people smarter than you and all that.
Yeah. And again, we saw a great picture of that this week, man. And that, the world's way is, retaliation, rioting, destruction. That's the way of the world. It just is. What we saw was the way of Christ Jesus. We saw a way of forgiveness and grace and thanksgiving, even in personal suffering. Like, that way's better, hands down.
Yeah.
Every single time. Now, the world doesn't understand it. It's confusing to them, right? But honestly, they'd rather the world be that way. They would much rather things be that way.
Man, that's a good point. That's objectively better.
Yes. Nobody would disagree with that unless you're just evil.
Evil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's a good point.
I don't want the world to be forgiving and full of grace. I'd rather riot and loot.
Right.
Yeah.
Go on my seeing red instincts and punch some folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that is probably what made it so admirable to hear her talk about forgiveness in that moment, is knowing the pain it would cause me to see my spouse murdered in front of my eyes, and the thought of what it would take to get myself to a microphone and even stand there, but then talk and then forgive the person that did it before the legal process has even started, really. Woof, heavy.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah.
How do you talk to somebody who they believe in an all-powerful God? They're searching through the different claims, I say religions that claim to have the path to God, and are trying to find a context for entering a church that's meaningful to them, that doesn't just feel like a feigned, like, let's get together and sing some songs and do the ritual.
Yeah.
Like, what role does church play in a person who's searching for the truth?
Yeah, great question. First of all, like when it comes to other faiths or religions, Christianity is the only faith, the only religion where God does the work for you. It's he completes the mission. Like it's not it doesn't salvation, wholeness, whatever you want to call it, shalom, peace, fullness of life, and eternal life. That's not dictated by us in terms of how we live. Like you know what I mean? So it's not about like every other religion will tell you you got to do these things, and then you get this. Your what you do determines what you become, and if you don't do enough or you don't do good enough, then you either get erased or you go to some other place, or you come back as a caterpillar. I don't know, but it's like you got to meet a standard of excellence in your life, and if you don't meet that standard, well, that's too bad. God's pissed off. Congratulations, you made him mad. Which to me, I'm like, if I can make God mad, is he God? Right. You know what I mean? Like you know how little I am,
right?
But Christianity is the only faith where God looks upon us with compassion, and it shows us a God who's rich in mercy, who has an unfailing love, and is tender-hearted enough to say, I love the world so much that it is broken and it's fractured, and I want to repair it. I want to fix it. I want to heal it, and I love it so much that I'm going to send Jesus in to redeem all things, to save the world, and he does. And in that, again, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And so for me to become healed and whole, to have fullness of life, eternal life, peace, shalom, then my responsibility isn't, do steps 1 through 3 and make sure that I, cross my T's and dot my I's and do these things to this standard of excellence. I can't. God knows that. I'm broken. I'm damaged. I'm dead, literally dead spiritually. That's impossible for me to do. But what I can do is understand that I'm poor in spirit. Understand that I have nothing to offer, and that God has given me everything in Jesus. And when I understand that invitation to reject that is just foolishness. I don't have to earn it. He's given it to me freely. The only thing I have to do is surrender. God, I receive whatever it is you give, and I'm grateful for it. I'm yours. And then in that, there's a transformation that takes place, right? There's a spirit of God that comes into me that is life-changing. Again, we saw that. There's no way a woman stands up on a stage without a spirit of God in her to bring her to that type of transformation. And so that's real. And in that, the church word sanctification, right? Sanctification is just becoming more Christ-like over time. And that's a process, dude. Like it's not quick, and it's not easy. Right? It's like, the book of Psalms chapter 1, that writes, blessed is the man who meditates on his law day and night. He's like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in its season. So even Jesus talks about that the kingdom of God is like a tree. So growth is slow. So if you go out here, you plant a tree tomorrow, 10, 20 years later, you come outside, it's bigger, but you didn't see it grow. Does that make sense? Like you can sit there all day long and just watch it. You're not going to see it grow, but over time, day after day, slowly and surely it grows. That's what sanctification is. It's a very slow process of a lifetime of knowing the heart of God, the heart that would say, even while you were an enemy, I loved you, and I've given you my son. The heart that draws you into his, that makes you more into the image of his son, which is really the image we're supposed to be all along. Jesus models the perfect display of humanity that God created us to be, right? Peaceful, forgiving, kind, caring, compassion, creative, beautiful, strong, He models all of that stuff. And so, of course, he doesn't want us to keep living the way that we were, broken. Nobody fixes something so that it can stay broken. It's we want to operate in our wholeness. And so it's sanctification, becoming more like Jesus day after day after day after day. So it's really, that's kind of the gift. And so to me, it's any other faith or any other religion is just, you go do it, right? And good luck, because the world sucks. You know what I mean? Like, it's really like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and earn it. Whereas God is like, Christianity is like, no, Jesus has done it for you. He has saved you. He's redeemed you. He has given you wealth and position in him. Now, out of that identity, out of that knowledge, out of those giftings, we then live a life connected to him, allowing him to change us and transform us over time. And so my behavior doesn't change because I want to be a moral person. My behavior changes because there's been a transformation in me that allows me the capacity to be different. Does that make sense?
I liked what you said yesterday about the water bottle being full of air, and that there's nothing you can do to get the air out of the water bottle. Instead, you have to fill it up with something else.
Yes.
In order to get the air out of it. So to get yourself out of the way, you have to be filled with something else, because there's nothing else you're going to do to change it.
There's got to be something else that compels you. You know what I mean? That I got to be, again, leaders will be like, what's your why? You know what I mean?
Your animating principle.
Ethan will talk about that. People will talk, what's your why? Your why is going to get you in the gym every morning or every day. It's that kind of a principle, but it's much more compelling.
So then talk to somebody who's looking for a reason to go to church on a Sunday morning. Like they like the concept of God in their life. They're sort of new to it. You want some more coffee?
I mean, I'll drink all the coffee.
We made it. Might as well drink it. So they're sort of exploring what the concept of faith means to them. They're new to this concept of there being an all-powerful God and the power of prayer in their life. They've seen that. And now they're trying to answer these question marks in their head about the church experiences they've had, because every time they've walked into a church, there's that awkwardness there. There's that, you realize the human production element of it that is off-putting to some. I've noticed some things about myself recently, like during the music time, that I allow myself to get distracted very easily. So just talk to somebody who's trying to find a reason to go into a church, what they should be looking for.
What's distracting you?
Having played the drums when I was a kid, and like I like watching people play the drums and play an instrument.
I got you.
Yeah. But yeah, for like, I've got a couple buddies who are in this camp where they're saying like, okay, there's more to this than I would have thought when I was 20, but I don't really know what it means. But I'm going to start to search, and I will start to pray to God, because I do think there's a more powerful thing than me. And I'll start talking to him. We'll see what happens. And then they catch some little nudges here and there, and they see, okay, I think I'm seeing a path a little bit better than I did before. Maybe that's that God thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then the questions go to, well, what is church about? Yeah. Why do I have to go? Like, can I just read a Bible or read whatever the book is that I'm after, and just have a direct relationship with him? Why do I got to talk to that? Why do I got to listen to that bald guy talk on Sunday to get closer?
Yeah.
What should the church experience be? What's the marker for somebody to go in and say, yeah, I want to come back again next Sunday? What should you be looking for?
Well, if you're looking for, I mean, first of all, you want to look for a church that's, obviously believes in the Bible, and it is centered in Christ, like first and foremost. Again, if all the Bible's about Jesus, and if, we're followers of Jesus, then we need to be about Jesus. Not
How do you know?
Well, if you spend enough time in a church, like if you listen, these days you can actually go listen to churches' sermons online, or you can, you can do some homework.
Yeah.
And you can figure out real quick what their importance is. So there's, I know churches who preach a lot about money. So what you talk about the most is what you care about the most. And so you can find out real quick, okay, these people love money, and for whatever reason, now they may be like, well, we want to build bigger things and reach more people. Okay, cool. But this is still a priority for you, right? So is that okay? Am I okay with that? Some people preach a lot about felt needs, making social impacts and, those kind of things, which is fine. But that's not the emphasis of the gospel. That's not the emphasis of Christianity. It's salvation in Jesus and life change in Him alone. Matter of fact, we're going to be talking about changing the world this Sunday as a part of our mission to love like Jesus, live like Jesus, and lead like Jesus, to see the world change through Jesus. But the world doesn't change. My world does not change through Jesus unless I change through Jesus first, right? So you can talk all day long about, bringing social justice and meeting felt needs and doing all these things, being good people, moral people in the world and making a difference. But if it doesn't start with Jesus changing me, then we're just doing good things and we're not actually reaching people with the gospel of Jesus, seeing their lives transformed as well. So, again, people preach on a lot of different things. So do they preach out of the Bible? Do they preach the gospel? Are they centered and rooted in Jesus first and foremost? That's the most important thing. I could care less about how great somebody's worship team is or the aesthetics of their building or any of that stuff. If I go in and they're talking about stuff that's not necessarily biblical or a calling of Christ, I'm like, I'm out. So that, number one. I think you want to look for, I think just naturally people want something genuine more so than ever. So and we've talked about this plenty of times, when I go into a place, do I have to spend too much time trying to figure out if this is real? Is this authentic? Are these genuine people? Mm-hmm. If I have to try to scratch through a bunch of facade or, things that might be pretentious, I'm probably going to leave pretty soon. If I can't figure it out in about a month, if I can't sit down and have a real conversation with the pastor or, at least one of somebody on the pastoral staff, if I can't see those things, then I'm out, So I think those are important. If people are asking why join a church or why is church important, and in faith or in Christianity, I mean, I guess you could say, hey, if you're going to battle, would you rather go alone, or would you rather go with some friends? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Would you rather go with a team? If you had a goal, or if you had a vision, or if there's something that you wanted to achieve in life that was great, would you rather do that on your own? Or would you rather do that with like-minded individuals to help you achieve a purpose and a goal in your life? I think I'm going with people, right? In those ways, if would you rather journey in life by yourself or in community, right? I'd rather go in community. That's kind of the idea, right? It's, what do you think's more impactful? A group of individuals sold out to a calling and a purpose, or an individual sold out to a calling and a purpose? What's more impactful?
Yeah.
Well, obviously the community, the group. So this is what Jesus talks about. He says, he tells his disciples, you guys are going to do greater things than I am, right? Now, they did some great things. They healed people, raised people from the dead. They did really cool things that advanced the gospel like a wildfire, that showed the authority that they had, that Jesus gave them. Does God still do those things? Probably. We just don't hear them or see about them. See them or hear about them. But we also have things they didn't back then. We have modern medicine. We have defibrillators. We have a lot of cool things that people didn't have back then. But really what Jesus is emphasizing is, he knows, Jesus, like, there's going to be many more of you than there are of me, right? And you have the same Spirit of God, the same Spirit that raised me from the dead. The Spirit of God is within you. So imagine the impact, imagine the reach, imagine the influence of that many believers living in a way that's sold out for Jesus and the gospel. It's much more impactful. And so that's why if you read the New Testament, it's always communal. It's always about a group. It's always about living this thing out together in faith. This is not an individual thing. Mm-hmm. It wasn't meant to be an individual thing.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for this because I'm a team sport guy. I don't golf. I don't like tennis. I'd rather play a sport where you got 8 other guys on the field and you're all responsible for making sure you get out of the inning, right? Like, there's something about that. It resonates better with my character. So the concept of a team of people in worship together on a Sunday, it's an easier hurdle for me to get over.
Yeah.
However, my experience, which I know I've shared with you before, when Ashton and I moved, like, we went and visited several churches, and there is a sense, I mean, the first time you walk in a church, it's really not fair, I don't think, to judge it on that first visit.
No.
Because everything's awkward.
Yeah.
Walking your way through the hallway to get into the sanctuary is awkward because you don't know where you are. You don't know where the bathroom is. You don't know where the water fountain is.
Christians are awkward.
And Christians are awkward sometimes.
Yeah.
You don't always find your folks in the first visit.
No, you'll run.
Rarely.
The first person you'll run into is that Ned Flanders guy. You know,
The guy at the door
howdy, howdy.
with big teeth, just ready to see you.
Hey,
Yeah, we're so
You're
blessed
new.
to see you today.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's off-putting to most people. But going a couple of times, at least giving a place a fair shake, like, you pretty well know after the second visit, it's in my spot. I don't know. That's my experience was after 2 or 3 visits at a church, you can kind of get a sense of whether or not you can be comfortable there. And then occasionally you'll go to one where you're like, oh man, I could see myself here, which was the case when we went to Calvary. So settling on a church has been an important part of putting down roots, I think, because you are there consistently with people that you see every week who are in your community, who you know if stuff hits the fan, at least I know I've got some folks that if I see them coming around the corner, they're probably friendly and not foe.
Yeah.
You know, there's utility to that. You had talked earlier about wanting to get closer to God as a pursuit. Are you familiar with this concept of an asymptote, where it's like you get closer and closer to a thing, but you never reach it?
Okay.
I think I can wrap my head around a faith journey being a thing that you're just never really going to get to this point where
It's like a mirage.
where you 100% know God the way that you desire to, but you can get closer and closer every day.
Yeah.
Is that a fair comparison?
I think it's accurate.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you know in your heart it's true and it's worth pursuing, and you see the results of that pursuit and that relationship play out in your life in a real way. But you may just never get to the point where, like, you stare God in the face and see it until that last moment.
One day you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until that last moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the gift, man. That's why, again, Jesus, like anything in the Bible, it's like, you know, the Bible's clear. It's like, in this, you're going to have trouble. But it also talks about troubles in this world as light and momentary troubles. It's like, one day you're going to stand before God, and you will see him face to face, and you will be in glory and in perfection. And at that point, it's like, none of this stuff mattered. You know what I mean? Light and momentary troubles. Like, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And it was all worth it. And so, but I think you're never going to get to a point where you arrive.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think you've arrived, then you've missed everything. And I always tell people, if I can figure out God, if he's figure outable, then he's not God. Right. But the joy is growing and learning more and more, and seeing what that does in and through me. Right. And how I grow and how I mature, and seeing, again, it's like, just like, you know, we work out, you know, and then, you know, one day you put that, you know, workout into real world scenarios, functional fitness. You know, you've been doing farmer carries for the past, you know, 2 months, and then all of a sudden you got to go out and move some feed bags or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I can pick up more.
I can
things
actually
than I
do
thought.
this.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Or I can carry this further distances.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, that's cool. I want to get back in there and work out some more.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's, you know, the more I grow in him and the knowledge of him, and see that applied to my life. And again, even this week, man, just watching people unravel, and seeing so many other Christians become younger Christians for the most part, but seeing them just lose it. Mm-hmm. You know, my heart broke for them too. and I was so thankful that, because I was mad, I was pissed off, right? I was angry. But I also felt in my spirit and in my soul, comfort and peace and assurance that, maybe 5-10 years ago wouldn't have been there in this specific context. Pastor Phil might have jumped online and said some things he ought not have. You know what I mean? It might not have gone as well, but to see that, and that wasn't because I decided to do that. It was because I'm different. I've changed. Over time, my tree has grown, but I don't know that it's grown until that moment hits, and I see how I responded differently than I would have years ago. And to me, that's awesome. It's like, yeah, I want more of that.
Yeah.
And so it's that draws me back. I'm never gonna arrive in that sense of perfection or gaining all the knowledge, but I do look back, and we should look back and think, man, what's the old saying? I'm not what I want to be, but thank God I'm not who I used to be. That kind of a thing. It's kind of that. It's like, I'm not there yet, but I can look back and say, well, I'm not that either.
Right.
And the Lord's done a great work in me.
Yeah, there's an example there to be set by Christians, and I think it's already being set. I mean, I think that this was something that Erica Kirk mentioned in her speech, but that in the weeks after her husband got murdered, you didn't see rioting, you didn't see retaliation, you didn't see knee-jerk reactions except for what played out online.
Yeah.
And I think an adult recognizes that whatever you see online is kind of BS anyways.
Yeah.
Like that's definitely not real life.
Some of them I think are brainwashed. But
well, okay, so the piece of that I want to get to is that if our job is to represent what Jesus was in human form to the best that we can, keeping him as close as possible so that we know how to react in circumstances that are beyond our power to react well. What does it look like for a Christian to lead by example at a time when that's not the default mode? Like when you see somebody cackling, laughing at a guy getting murdered, the knee-jerk reaction is not to it's definitely not to give mercy to that guy, but it's especially not to give grace to that guy. Talk about what grace looks like from a group of Christian people who are wanting this to be a thing that results in good for their country, for their community.
Well, yeah, again, it goes back to the gospel. It's like, how do I speak the gospel into that? And it all goes back to the way that Jesus saw me before. We tend to put ourselves, because at some level we tend to put ourselves, we see ourselves in, at this level of growth, and we tend to pat ourselves in the back, and we think we got there on our own, and like, I've never been that guy. Well, maybe not in this world, but in a spiritual sense, absolutely, you were that guy. I was that guy. In our filth and in our evil, in our natural state, I was that guy. And outside of Jesus, I know I'd be that guy again, right? Now, maybe not in the same way, maybe not as blatantly sick and twisted and evil, but again, what we do in our world is we want to feel good about ourselves, so we can put ourselves on one side of the scale and put somebody else on the other, and we can think, well, I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But again, we've all fallen short of the glory of God, and we are all by nature children of wrath. That wrath is the same across the board.
Yeah.
I get the same wrath that guy gets. And we're like, well, how can that be? I thought God was good. He is good, and that proves his goodness.
Yeah. All have sinned.
Yeah, everybody's sinned. Across the board, same level for everybody. That proves that he is good. You want to know that he's good? It's because he's just.
Yeah.
If he wasn't just, he wouldn't be good. Right? If I took somebody who broke the law before a judge, and the judge was like, don't worry about it, would that be a good judge? No, because he did not seek justice. So when everyone has rebelled against God, when everybody is fallen, when everybody's selfish, when everybody chooses themselves, when everybody is trespassed, right? Across the board, we're separated from the love of God. Across the board, we are deserving of his wrath because he's good and he's holy and he's pure and he's just, but he's also loving. And so he's made a way for us. So the first thing I need to do is I need to see myself in the right light, right? That I'm not, I haven't merited anything because I'm better than that person. And I also we talked about this the other day in Living Like Jesus, where we need to think the way Jesus thought. And so Jesus, looked out upon a crowd. It says that he had compassion on them and that he thought of them as sheep without a shepherd. He said, these people are in trouble. These people are hurting. They're like sheep without a shepherd. Nobody's here to guide, direct them, lead them, care for them. That's the way he thought of people. We ought to think of people in that light, right? And that's, again, this is a transformational thing that needs to take place. This doesn't happen naturally. So, and it's a marker of growth in Christ when we see something like that and we think, all right, I'm pissed. I'm real mad. And what I want to do is lash out. What I want to do is say something. What I want to do is respond. But man, that person's in danger. They don't know it, but that person is in real need. And their life is a living hell. You can tell by the way that they live. You can tell by the way that they act. And apart from Jesus, there's an eternal separation from God that's coming for that person. And, so seeing them in that light helps me. At the very least, it helps me to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Keeps you from making it worse.
Yeah. Like, what's the theologian Thumper? If you ain't got nothing good to say, don't say nothing at all.
Yeah.
The world would be a better place if people just did that. So I think seeing people in that light, as Jesus did, again, he is the perfect, unblemished Son of God, Savior of the world. And he looked at us with compassion. And he looked at, people are spitting on him, mocking him, nailing him to a cross. Right? They're casting lots for his clothes beneath his feet as he's dying, and chanting for his death. And he says, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Like, so if we think that's wicked, try nailing the Son of God to a cross and then mocking him. All right, King. All right, Son of God. If you are, you say you are. Get yourself off that cross. Right? Do it. Save yourself. And he's taking it all in. And he could have jumped off the cross, and he could have just been like, boom, Thanos, the whole thing. Just like, we're done. Let's wrap this up. But he's slow to anger, and he has compassion, and he says, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And so for me, it's like coming back to that gospel-centeredness and thinking, okay, they don't know what they don't know. They have no idea. And as hard as that is for me to be brokenhearted over, the more I grow in Christ, the more I am. Right?
Yeah, and there's a checking of your motive that can happen in that process too, because if you're really looking out for what you think is best for that person and you think they're wrong, well, then the best case scenario would be that they come to the truth as you see it. Well, the only chance you really have of influencing that in a positive direction is to be able to offer grace immediately when that person realizes, oh, I got this one wrong. Yeah. And you can't do that from a place of retaliation. They just can't exist in the same brain at the same time.
No. And again, what I want is I want the glory of God and his goodness to be revealed in my life. So that dictates a lot of what I say and don't say. And what I do. Does this bring glory to God? Does this bring good? If not, let's not do it, right? Because, again, we are to be salt, we are to be light. Live in such a way that people see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So if somebody's, doing something, especially online, man, you're not convincing anything of any,
you're really not doing anything.
No. You're just feeling good about yourself,
you're
right?
Just typing angrily.
Yeah. And so, if there's something that I can correct in real world situations that's harmful, like if I'm at a soccer game and some parents wilding out and cussing at kids, I'm probably going to go over there, right? And I'm going to try to do it in a loving and gentle way. Hey, bro, we got kids around here, man. I'm not at you. I'm not against you. But if you wouldn't mind, bro, I would love if you could tone it down a notch, too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to throw hands right now, but Pastor Phil, throw a hand if he needs to, all right? But I don't want to. It's not going to look good for me. But I want to, so if it's a real world situation and I can add value and I can again demonstrate truth and love, then yeah, let's do that if possible. If not, let's, don't worry about it. But again, I want people to see goodness of God and the glory of God. So like in these situations, what's going to bring God the most glory? Is it me striking back? Is it me yelling? No. Really, what's going to bring God the most glory, again, is what we've seen. People coming to salvation through the death of one of his followers. That's bringing so much glory you can't even imagine. What's going to bring him glory is people who hated God or denounced God or cursed at God coming to salvation in Jesus Christ, and now they're the ones proclaiming the goodness and the glory of God.
Yeah. Who had set out to write a book about why it's not true. Absolutely.
Right. Think about, again, the Apostle Paul. This dude, this is the radical transformation of Jesus. He was a Pharisee. He was a studier of the law. He knew it inside and out. He grew up memorizing it. He could quote the whole Torah, the whole book, all 5 books, the Pentateuch. He could word for word. Most Christians I know barely know 5 verses in the Bible. This dude had the whole 5 books of the Old Testament memorized, okay? Locked down, studied it his whole life, could argue it with anybody. So much so that he hated Christians, he hated Jesus, did not believe he was the Messiah, believed that they were in the way, believed that they were taking God's glory, believed that so murdered them, right? Stephen, the first martyr, stoned to death. Paul authorized it. He said, yeah, let's stone that dude. Let's take him out, drag him away from his family and his friends. Let's do it publicly so everybody knows what's going to happen if you follow Jesus. And he was known, the Bible describes him as breathing murderous threats. That's evil, right? He's dragging Christians out of their homes, away from their family, away from their kids, away from their communities, and murdering them, killing them, or putting them in jail. And Jesus is like, y'all want to see something cool? And he meet that guy, the most evil person in the New Testament that everyone was scared of. Jesus goes to that man and changes his life, upsets everything, turns his life right side up. And from that point on, Paul begins to change the world. Jesus changes the world through him. And there's nothing that brings God more glory, right? It's like, what if these people, what if the people that we see as enemies, what if the people that we see as evil, what if the people that we see as competition, whatever it is, right? Like, we got to get rid of these people. What if God's like, no, I want to use that fool, right? What you see as a problem, I see as potential. So what if that person fell in love with Jesus and used that same energy to glorify him?
Yeah, and we're all approaching it from the same place of brokenness and that we've all sinned.
Yeah.
Like the question I've asked you before that I've asked everybody I've interviewed is about optimism, like the thing that makes you optimistic. And as I was thinking in the last 2 weeks about why I like that question is it gives a commonality. Like you find common reasons for optimism, and that's sort of your starting point to keep moving. But the common ground that I think most people have that prevents them from talking to each other, especially when they know there's going to be a disagreement there, that I thought would make a good question. You ever done something you're ashamed of?
Yeah.
Me too.
Who hasn't?
Everybody.
Yeah.
But there's a air sometimes that people catch off of Christian folks that they're redeemed, so therefore they don't have to face the things that they have shame about. And I think that the reality there should be that we're so familiar with our shame to the point where if we recognize, okay, this is a person that I can connect with and get through to by sharing maybe a little more than they needed to hear about me and my past and the things I'm ashamed about, but to give us a common ground where we can both realize, like, I'm as effed up as you are, man.
That's what we built our church on. Yeah, that's the whole point. Like, that's why every Sunday I'm like, y'all can go ahead and leave your Sunday best outside.
Yeah.
Right? Leave your church filters. I don't care how pretty and put together your family is. You're a train wreck, bro. We all have issues, right? So it's, that is the starting point. That's why Paul, the guy, I mean, again, his life completely transformed, and he's like, I can brag with the best of you. He said, you think you know the law? I know the law. You think you got a lot of tassels? I got more. You think you got trophies? Trust me, back home, I got tons of trophies. I can run circles around any of you fools. But I count all that stuff garbage, right? He's like, that's trash to me. He says, I could argue, I could boast, I could do all these things. He said, but there's this thing about me, and I keep doing a thing that I don't want to do, and the thing that I want to do, I don't do. So I don't even care about my trophies. I got this thing. But that's okay, because what I've learned is in that thing, in my weakness, in the thing that I'm ashamed of, in the thing that's broken, whatever that is, I think for him it was probably the fact that he murdered Christians. You know what I mean? I just don't
It would
think,
be up there.
I don't think he could get
regrets.
over it, right? No matter what you did. Like, you're so in love with the Lord, and you're starting churches, and you're seeing people come to salvation, and you murdered these people.
Yeah.
Right? By the way, the crazy thing about the gospel is when Paul died and entered heaven, those people he murdered applauded him. Way to go, Paul. What glory you brought to God. That's crazy to me to think about. Yeah. So, but I think that was the thing. It could have been anything, right? He could have had any kind of struggle. He doesn't name the struggle, and I think God purposely didn't have him name the struggle, or we would all identify with that struggle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Leave it ambiguous so it applies to more people.
So it's open ended. So he's like, so what I've known, what I've grown to know, Paul says, is that it's my weakness that brings God glory. It's really in that. It's not in my strength. It's not in the things that I'm confident in. It's really in my struggle. It's in my strength. It's in my weakness that he's made strong. And that brings him the most glory. And so if I'm going to boast in anything, I'm going to boast in my weakness all the more, because it brings him glory. And I think, man, we've lost that somehow. It's like we've lost the fact that that's our commonality. Is that I'm broken, you're broken, everybody's broken. We're all a train wreck. We all have issues. We all have shame. We all have things we wish. We don't want to live in that. We don't want to identify ourselves by that. But we ought to recognize that and find a place of common ground to say, like, I don't know what I'm doing either.
Mm-hmm.
I'm broken too, but I know the one who's whole, and I know the one who makes me whole. And so let's journey together towards that in our brokenness.
Yeah.
And so really it's that kind of commonality that, and again, you talk about, why together, why church? That's why, right? So that together we can bear with one another. We can comfort one another. We can care for one another. We can encourage one another. We can do, the Bible is full of one another's, which means this isn't an individual thing. It is to be done with one another. One thing that's never done. So encourage one another, bear with one another, love one another, humble one another isn't a thing. Right? We're called to humble ourselves. So that's a part of that, understanding my weakness. I'm not going to boast in myself. I'm going to boast in, I have a weakness, and I'm going to stay humble in that area. And together, if we acknowledge those things, then we love one another through that. We care for one another through that. We bear with one another in that way.
It is sort of the reason to go to church. That sort of answers that question. It's the community of people that, aside from the air that you're both breathing because you're both alive, you all have that common place of brokenness and shame that you're coming from, of like, I don't know what you did, but I know what I did.
I know you did something.
I know why I'm here.
Yeah.
That's good.
We're
That's
not
a good
really,
place.
we're not really good at that.
Good place to put a pin in this, man. We don't have to record every time we get together, but I enjoy it every time we get together.
I do too. It's fun. It's good practice,
good
anyways.
It's good practice.
Yeah.
I look at it the same way. I after the Charlie Kirk thing happened, my knee jerk was to shut up for a little bit and
good.
like turn my phone off. And I have a thing where I just turn it to grayscale, so it's less enticing.
Yeah.
And to get away from it for a couple weeks. But I've realized now, like, okay, I kind of need to get back to talking a little bit, if for no other reason but to sort through it in my own brain and know, like, okay, you got to get to the bottom of these things.
Well, I think again, like we talked about when you came in, there's that, how do we deal with this grief?
Mm-hmm.
How do we walk through that and deal with that? And I think unplugging, spending some time in solitude is healthy. We're not good at that either. We tend to just try to power through and keep going. But I think unplugging and taking some time, but then getting back in again. Even Jesus, like we talked about how, he saw the crowd and had compassion on them. But before that, John the Baptist was killed. His cousin, and the forerunner to his ministry, who pointed the way to Jesus, who Jesus loved. He's like, there's no greater person than John the Baptist, right? John the Baptist is killed, and Jesus grieves, and he pulls away, to grieve. He spends time alone, spends times in prayer, and then he gets back out.
Yeah.
And then he sees the crowd and has compassion on them. So I think it's healthy to, and again, Jesus always enters into grief. So grief's good. Grief's a gift.
Yeah, man, that was I guess it was before we were recording that we talked about that. But
Yeah.
the one of the most powerful pieces of content that I think I've ever taken in was Tucker Carlson's America After Charlie Kirk, where he brought in people that obviously disagreed with Charlie on big issues, but who knew him as a person, and like let them talk through just their own sort of processing of what had happened and the things that they had disagreed with, but the ways that they were able to form a relationship amidst those like stakes in the ground that they would have almost gone to war over their disagreements, but they found common ground enough to have mutual respect where like this guy's willing to talk on the Remembrance podcast on Tucker Carlson about, the character of the man he was in the presence of. But the last interview there being with a I think he was a Franciscan friar, but talking about the 40-day grief process that the Catholic Church goes through and the utility of that, of like not acting in emotion, not letting yourself be reactive, letting yourself have enough time blocked to feel all the things that you're going to feel in the subsequent months after a tragic accident or a tragic circumstance that's not an accident. Yeah, I think that's a concept that broadly applied to culture would serve us well. Yeah,
it's important to grieve and unplug and step back. Again, even you think about when Lazarus dies, everybody knows the one verse, like Jesus wept, but it's important. Like Lazarus dies, his sisters, Mary and Martha are distraught. They're just overwhelmed with grief, and Jesus comes and meets them in that grief. He knows he's going to raise him from the dead. He knows exactly what he's going to do. He knew he was going to die. He doesn't show up and it's like, hey guys, this is part of my plan. Would y'all just get it together? Right? I know what I'm doing. Where's your, and he doesn't say, turn that frown upside down, everybody. Check out this, he meets them in it, and he grieves with them. And he, again, is a part of that humanity. It's like he experiences what we experienced. And he sits in that place for a little bit.
Never thought about that before.
Yeah.
Why'd he weep if he knew he was going to bring him back from the dead?
Yeah. Because we were hurting.
Huh.
He hurt for us. Right. He's feeling things as fully God but fully man, and full of the emotion and the hurt and the heartache. And when he senses their loss and their hurt and their fear and overwhelm, like that moved him. And he entered straight into that and sat with them in it, and then raised him from the dead, which is cool, unless you're Lazarus.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Like, I gotta do this again.
That story's not told from Lazarus' point of view, is it?
I would have been like, bro.
Yeah.
I was
you do
good.
that?
I was good, man.
Yeah. That's funny. Phil, thanks for taking time, man.
Dude.
Appreciate you. I'm glad you're in my life.
For sure, man. Same.
All right.
It's fun.